Doug, welcome to the podcast, man.
Satya, it's great to be with you.
Dude, I think we got connected through MindPump. Is that right? MindPump.
I think I saw you on the MindPump podcast, and I loved what you had to say, so I reached out.
Yeah, that's cool. No, I enjoyed the interview on your podcast. You've had like Huberman and some serious players on your podcast. So very cool what you're doing. We're going to get into all of that. But your incredible accomplishments really are the result of a really hard story of addiction, which our audience would obviously resonate with. Maybe just give us like the Coles Notes of your addiction story and where this all began.
So I think for me, it was pain mismanagement. I dealt with a lot of emotional pain growing up between my parents getting divorced and being picked on as a kid and being overweight and not being picked for sports teams. And I chose to use drugs to self-medicate, and that like snowballed into a variety of other issues in my life. And I took my first hit off a marijuana pipe when I was 14 years old. And when I first took that hit, I felt all the pain go away. And then that, of course, made me want to continue to chase that feeling. I started to smoke every day, started to develop a habit. And then I'm selling a little bit on the side in order to support my habit. And then that caused other problems at home with my parents and my family and in school. Got kicked out of my mom's house on my 16th birthday, went to live with my dad full time, and then also changed high schools within a matter of 24 hours. And I just, again, continued on the same path, barely graduated high school. And then after high school, some of my friends went off to college. Some of my friends were going to community college. Some of my friends were like doing other things. And I really had no other option but to kind of just do the same thing I was doing and to do and sell drugs. And so at this point, after graduating high school, I was selling weed to make money. And then as you like kind of graduate the drug game, you meet more people that are doing harder things. And I got introduced to Coke not too long after that. And I loved the euphoric feeling that Coke gave me because you can take somebody who's severely unconfident and make them confident very fast. Because
right, like just eliminates your inhibitions.
Yeah, it's like you feel like you can do anything. But, I also struggled with anxiety as a kid. So, cocaine and anxiety go about as well together as a person trying to lose weight and eating a bunch of pizza every day.
Right.
And so I started to develop like crippling panic attacks from the Coke. And then I got introduced to painkillers. And that's what inevitably brought me to my knees. A 5 milligram Percocet that at first took all the pain away once again, like weed did, allowed me to live my addictive lifestyle without the emotional consequences that I was having before with the anxiety and the panic. But now I'm dealing with, a hardcore drug that's highly addictive. And
so the Percocets took away your emotional pain?
Yeah. Yeah, that's
okay.
the cool thing. I think the cool thing, when I say cool, I mean like the alluring thing, I should say, about painkillers to people is I think they solve two problems. They give you the euphoric dopamine rush of being high, and they solve emotional pain because it's, they just, it just like completely like numbs you out. And so that feeling again became super addictive. And then I started to snort, like, went from 5 milligrams a day to 10 to 20 to 40 to 80, all the way up until I'm doing like hundreds of milligrams of OxyContin on my nose every single day.
And are you still dealing these as well to fund the addiction?
I was dealing weed and then also like selling like a little bit of Coke here and there on the side and some pills to try to like make up for the money that I was spending. The main thing I sold was weed. I was selling a lot of weed. And then, but again, like, I had a whole other list of problems going on in my life between the damage in my family relationships. I couldn't keep a job, horrible self-confidence, no self-esteem. I was fat. My habits were horrible. I would sleep in until like 2 or 3 o'clock every day, have to snort a few pills to like get out of bed. And then like meals for me were like, 4 or 5 double cheeseburgers from McDonald's, some French fries. And then I would get like a whole pizza and a cheesesteak from a pizza shop. And then like, it was really, really bad. And thankfully I got arrested when I was 20 years old on Cinco de Mayo of 2008. I was riding around with a few of my friends to make a drug deal. And I had a half a pound of pot in my trunk, had $2,000 in cash in the glove box. And there was a cop running radar. And I didn't realize that Cinco de Mayo was one of the biggest drinking nights of the year. So there was a guy running radar, and then I flashed my high beams at the police officer because I had to hide the fact that I had a busted headlight, and that gave him a reason to pull me over. One thing leads to the next. I'm like panicking. My heart sinks in the pit of my stomach, and he pulls me over and searches the car and finds everything. Finds the weed, finds the money, finds a scale.
Wow.
Throws me in the back of a cop car. And at that's
point, so classic. Sorry to cut you off, but that's so classic. You tried to hide the headlight.
Yeah.
And then little do you know, it exposes this whole thing. It's crazy.
Well, it's just how I think that's a great metaphor for life, right? I think eventually when you hide the problem just gets way bigger, right?
Yeah, eventually catches up.
Yeah. And so I'm in the back of this cop car, and this was I guess kind of a turning point in a way, where I was just sitting there in handcuffs, and I'm like, man, how did I get here? How did the kid who just wanted to fit in and be loved and feel good about himself, how is he in the back of a cop car in handcuffs facing felony drug charges? And it was my inability to deal with pain. I think that, bad things happen to you. Bad things happen to me. Bad things happen to a lot of people. And I think it's easy when bad things happen to use that bad thing as a catalyst to make other bad decisions in your life, because the story sounds great. There's a commodity in being a victim. There's commodity in feeling sorry for yourself and people having compassion, right? Which it's not to say that you can't have compassion for somebody who's going through it, because I think that is definitely needed. I just think that's like another drug that's addicting, because then you just tell yourself that same story, and then 10 years go by, 15 years go by, 20 years go by, and your life is way worse off. And it's not because of that bad thing. It's because of your choices that you made in response to that. And that happened with me. And, so I go to jail. My dad bails me out the next day. And then I end up, officially being charged with possession with the intent to distribute marijuana, which was a felony. I believe it's still a felony now. I don't know the exact legal terms for it anymore, but back in 2008 it was. And went to court in September of that year. And the judge, in my mind, I thought threw the book at me, but he actually thought he was giving me a deal. He found me guilty, and he sentenced me to 5 years in jail, suspending everything but 90 days, meaning do the 90-day sentence. However, if I messed up in any way, I could potentially have to go back and serve the full 5 years. Give me 5 years probation, 200 hours of community service, and all kinds of fines and drug classes. But he looked at me. He's like, Doug, you're young. You're 20. This felony conviction is going to haunt you for the rest of your life. He's like, if you can complete everything without messing up, you don't miss probation, you don't fail a drug test, you do everything I say, I will take the conviction off of your record at the end of the 5 years and give you a PBJ. And at that time, I didn't think I was going to live to see my 25th birthday. I thought I was going I thought I was going to die.
Because of the drugs?
Because of the drugs, the lifestyle I was leading. And I went to funerals as a kid for friends of mine, not people I knew, not my grandparents, like friends that I was partying with. And so I got desensitized to death at a very young age. And I went to funerals at a time where you shouldn't be going to funerals. It's for people that were my age. And, and every time I would go, I'm like, man, that could have easily been me. I mean, I ran around with a tough crowd. We did a lot of drugs. We went hard. And that was normal for me. And that was the lifestyle. And we also would joke, we admired the rappers who were rapping about drugs. We admired there was a poster, and I forget who exactly was on the poster. I'm blanking on it now, but there was every the rock stars who died at the age of 27.
Yeah,
and we were like, man, if we can't party the way we are, what's the point of living? And so, I didn't think I was going to see my 25th birthday. And so the judge gave me this deal, and I'm like, all right, man, whatever, I'll take it. Gave me a few weeks to gather my stuff, and I celebrated my 21st birthday, and then a week after that, I went to report to jail. And the craziest thing about this, and then we'll get into however we can go wherever you want with it, is that jail, when I reported to jail, I cried because I didn't want to go in for obvious reasons. When I left, I cried because I didn't want to leave. And it's because my cellmate helped me transform my life when I was behind bars. It's where I found fitness. It's where I went from not being able to do a single push-up from my knees to being able to do a set of 10 by the time I left my sentence. was able to run a mile, even though at first I could barely walk up down the steps. He helped me, reevaluate taking accountability in my life and to stop blaming people for my problems. He helped me develop discipline and forced me to get comfortable being uncomfortable and to show up for myself even when I didn't feel like it. He taught me all these things and completely helped me reinvent myself when I was behind bars. So much so that I cried because I just had this crazy transformation that I really didn't know what to do with at the time. And he gave me a workout plan that I still have framed with me today, so I never forget where I came from, got out, and then have just used that experience as fuel to not only change my own life, but to help change the lives of other people as well.
Wow. Dude, what a story. That's wild. I don't even know where to start. So I guess I'm going to start on when the judge hands you the sentence, or he makes the deal with you, you accept. Are you basically thinking, are you thinking you're actually going to do what he says to do for those 90 days and really try to get out of this early and be clean for the 5 years? Or are you just thinking, are you giving him lip service and you're just going to do your thing?
I mean, I was giving him lip service. I mean, I was high in court. I got high when I left court. I continued to get high, all day, every day. The last thing, I was almost late reporting to jail, and they could potentially, if you're late, hit you with an escape charge. Because technically, when they give you time to gather your stuff during that window, you're supposed to be in jail. And okay. So if you show up late to when you're supposed to be there, they could potentially have hit you with, trying to escape. But I mean, I was late I was almost late. I wasn't late because the last thing I did was snort a bunch of Oxy with my friends before I went in. Wow. And so the detox in jail was horrible. Weeks.
Right. Because you have all the withdrawals.
Oh, it was brutal,
hitting you at
dude.
the same time.
Brutal.
What was the worst of it?
I mean, I think the worst feeling was there was a feeling of trying to leave your own body, you felt like you needed to crawl out of your own skin in a way. Just the anxiety but I think it was just a lot of shedding too. I was shedding the old me so I could become new. And I mean, that's how I look at it now. But it was uncontrollable bowel movements, vomiting, pain, anxiety, you just disassociation, all these things that you just are so used. Because I was so used to heavily sedating and medicating myself for essentially 7 straight years, nonstop, not a day missed whatsoever. And I was also doing it at a time when my brain was developing, which made it that much worse because now I essentially had changed my brain. And, I was scared, obviously. And part of the reason I didn't know if I would make it too is I was just also convinced that my brain was never going to go back to the way it was. But thankfully, because of neuroplasticity and the body's ability to adapt, I was able to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I was completely hopeless when I went to court. And really the only thing that helped me gain any kind of clarity and motivation was my cellmate looking me in the face and telling me to stop feeling sorry for myself and to look at myself in the mirror and to own my story and stop waiting for someone or something to rescue me.
When did he say that to you?
So I met him when he was playing Scrabble. We played a lot of games in jail: Scrabble, chess, pinochle, spades. It was fun. But he was he looked at me and he's like, man, this. He could tell that I was just felt out of place, and I felt like I didn't want to be there, and had my head down and was scared, all the things. And he looked at me. He's like, man, you're going to start working out with me when you get through your detox. And I was like, man, I could be a model for Pillsbury right now. There's no way I'm working out with you, dude. And he looked like a more jacked version of Brad Pitt in that movie Fight Club. And he's like, all right, man, whatever. And then shortly after that, I saw him work out and stuff like that. And then we're talking and he's asking me questions. And he's like, why are you in jail? And I started to blame my family. He said, well, why else? And then I would blame everybody else, right? But myself. And he looked at me in the PG version as he said, stop being a victim. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. Stop being a wuss. He's like, you're blaming every single person for your problems but yourself. He's like, there's plenty of people that went through what you went through that aren't in jail, right, Doug? And I'm like, yep. He's like, so there's obviously, you obviously have some role in this and it's up to you to change. And that conversation changed my life, because every situation I'm in now, I always come back to that. It might not be like in the present moment. I mean, I surely do things that I think back and I'm like, man, I shouldn't have said it like that, or I shouldn't have said this, but I always like find a way to somehow own it, you know? And I think that that's where people slip up, because I could sell my story, my childhood, as a sob story I still could, to a lot of people, right?
Yep.
But all that does is it gets people to feel sorry for me, takes the power away from me, lack of control, people patting me on the back for sharing about how other people treated me. So then it puts an emphasis on me valuing how other people treat me. And then like then it's just like, then it makes sense to people, like why you get addicted to drugs because of that story, right? People are like, oh, I can get it. But then when you look at it and you have honest conversations with yourself, you know, I think Peterson says something to the effect of, and again, I could be butchering this, so take it for what it's worth, but it's something like, if your life isn't where it is, start telling yourself the truth, or something like that. And that hits me a lot, because I think if people are truly honest with themselves, like truly, they will find a way to have some sort of accountability in their life. It's just, how do you get there? And how do you get there when you're in a position of feeling like a failure, or feeling like your life is falling apart, when your self-esteem is already shattered and your self-confidence is already near the ground? Like, how do you have the ability to humble yourself at that point? Yeah. And be like, man, like, I need to change. It's like, I think one of the reasons, it doesn't matter what you're using to medicate, whether it's porn, drugs, alcohol, whatever you call it, like, the reason, I think one of the main reasons it's so hard to quit these things is typically when people are abusing substances, or they have a behavior addiction like porn or whatever, and they're like, you know what, like, I need this to change. Typically their life is falling apart in some way. You know, people aren't like on top of the world being like, yeah, I need to like change my life. People, it's typically like something's going on, right? And so now you're taking away the thing that has medicated them for so long, or numb them, at a point where their self-confidence is low. Then it's like, ooh, like, how do you rebuild? How do you, you know? And I think if you can tell yourself the truth and get radically honest with yourself and say, you know what, like, I have played a role in this. My life has been hard. There's been some unfortunate things that's happened. And I've also played a massive role in my downfall, and it's up to me to change. Then you get agency and you get power back. And then you can say, okay, like, where do I go from here? And I just think if people can at least start there, I think that's like 90% of the work, is like having the audacity to take responsibility for yourself.
Yeah, it's true. It's really true. Why do you think your cellmate was able to get through to you on this, though? Because I have to imagine people told you this before.
Of course. You know, as a kid, I was a kid who like loved sports. You know, I was the guy who collected baseball cards. I would stay up late to watch ESPN, played fantasy football, did all the things. But I was just not a good athlete, and I was not in shape. And I always thought that if I could get into some serious shape and be jacked, that I'd be happy. My problems would go away. And that's a whole other story of how I actually got to that, and then they didn't go away. But in that moment, I thought that it would at least give me like something to lean into. And so when I saw this guy, my cellmate, he kind of had what I wanted in a way. Like, I mean, I didn't want to be like, he was in and out of prison for a long time. I didn't necessarily obviously want to be that. Yeah. But he had this physique that I wanted. And, you know, a lot of times it's just weird. I think when people close to you tell you to change your life, you know, you don't feel like they understand you. And I felt like he got me, because he was an addict himself, because he was in jail. You know, his upbringing, I don't think, was the greatest either. And so for some reason at that time, I was ready. I wanted more for myself. And I just think the timing was great, because I was in jail. I was in a place where I didn't have the ability to like escape like I had before. Yeah. And he pushed me, man. And he believed in me at a time where I didn't believe in myself. And I think that went a long way for me. And he didn't quit on me. Like, he kept showing up. And I think, you know, there has been people in my life my family that have continued to show up for me. My grandparents have shown me unconditional love at all times.
Grandparents are amazing for that, man.
And I'm still super close with them. And, but I've had people like that, but no, I didn't have anybody I would say that like didn't have skin in the game. Like, family's family and they'll say what you want.
Yeah.
But like he was just a guy in the jail cell. And I just was like, man, like, all right, like, I don't know what he sees in me, but he had convinced me somehow that I could look like him. and that was really the big reason for me, like wanting to take in what he said.
At what point in jail did you go from, I gave the judge lip service, I'm going through the motions, to, oh, I'm going to get out of here clean and I'm going to get my life back on track?
I don't remember the exact like moment, but it was at a time where I had been working out. And, you got to remember, I went from like, I couldn't even like hold myself up to do a push-up for my knees. I could barely walk up and down the steps. So my fitness level was like negative 3,000, and I think it was like, when I started to be able to do like push-ups from my feet without stopping.
Wow.
Which is a big accomplishment for me. I mean, that would be like me, like trying to break David Goggins' pull-up record today, it'd be like pretty impossible. And then there was a time too where I remember people behind bars when I would work out and I couldn't get a rep, they'd be like, hey, like think about what makes you mad. And I was so emotionally disconnected from myself from all the drugs that I couldn't like figure it out. Like I knew what made me mad, but I couldn't really like feel it. And then eventually I was able to. And there was a time where my dad came to visit me, and I had convinced myself at this point that I didn't need to go to rehab. That I knew that I was going to change my life when I got it. I just had this feeling that I was like, man, I figured it out. If I'm stressed out, if I'm anxious, I'll just work out, or I'll just go for a run. Like that gave me this same or very similar euphoric feeling that the drugs did at the time. And I'd also just, because it was the first time in my life I had been like drug free, and again, in like 7 years, that I was able to finally think clearly about my decisions and my life and stuff. And so my dad came to visit me, and he essentially like didn't think I was going to be able to make it and wanted me to kind of do things his way, which, totally understand, respect. But I felt.
What was his way? What did he want you to do?
I mean, he wanted me to go to rehab, and, he was like convinced that his way was the only way to do it. And if I said anything else, he kind of, he didn't necessarily agree with my decision. And, we didn't have the best relationship growing up. And I always wanted a good relationship with him. It just, for some reason, it was just like, we just didn't blend well together. And with that said, I remember just getting really angry, and it was because, I was like, man, they don't believe in me. Like they think I'm lying or whatever. And I remember like going into the cell and telling Eric, my cellmate, I was like, dude, let's work out. And he like looked at me like I was shocked. 'Cause it was the first time I had really motivated myself to work out because I was pissed. And I learned how to tap into that negativity and turn it into fuel. I mean, I don't advocate that for a long period of time, because eventually it's a very lonely path, and it can be very chaotic if you just
you need more anger basically to keep getting good results, which is not the best system in the world, right?
Right. But because I had so much anger and pain that I needed to deal with, I had a lot of fuel to get me to a place where I needed to go.
Yeah,
but
but
then you get to that place, and it's like, it's just not the same, as when you're doing things out of passion and because you feel like you're in alignment, and it's just it's a different feeling. However, I will say, for people that, have some stuff they're dealing with, I mean, using that as motivation, I think can be at least a great catalyst to get you started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think, whatever's going to get you on that path of doing better things and making better decisions, like whatever that is, just do it. And I think for me, I definitely felt that same way. I thought, you can just replace pornography with something else that's better. And then eventually, like you said, you start to tap into deeper layers of calling and purpose and alignment, I think was the word you used. And I fully agree with that. Tell me a little bit about the statement that you got into drugs because of pain. What pain were you coping with?
Just a lot of emotional pain, man. Like my parents got divorced when I was around 5 years old. And it was at a time where, a lot of my friends, their parents weren't divorced. So I started to, like, I knew they didn't get divorced I knew it wasn't because of me. Like, I never felt like it was like my fault. I wasn't like that. Right. But I felt like kind of out of place where I had, said like, man, like, why are my friends' parents still together and mine aren't, and stuff like that. And with that said, that created this "what's wrong with me" mentality. Like, why am I different from other kids? And then, like, my passion and my love for sports was like 100%. And yet my talent and skill was like 20%. I mean, just throwing that number, but just to show like the unevenness in that. And I just began to question, like, how come my friends, are putting the same effort in as I am, but they're just way better than me at the things I love to do. Because I think, like, there's, as a guy, at least in many cases, your self-confidence is largely based on your athletic ability. At least it was, like, in the circles I grew up in, where you grew up playing sports and you're being picked for certain teams. There's certain, like, levels in high school sports. There's freshman teams, there's JV, there's varsity, you're a captain, you're a superstar, you're all county, you're all state, you're all these things that if you're like practice squad or you're like manager, not because I wanted to be, just because I couldn't make the team, right? Like, then you feel insecure. And again, like, what's wrong with me? And then, like, I ate unhealthy, but I think, I know there's a big movement now to get kids to eat healthier, and I think that's really important. However, I think, like, kids typically, like, don't eat the healthiest, right? So I was, like, eating things that weren't much different than my friends. I was eating, like, pasta and snacks and processed food and cinnamon buns and Pop-Tarts. But yet I'm the one who was, like, gaining body fat, and my friends, like, they weren't. So I'm shopping for, like, husky clothes when I'm a kid, and it's just kind of weird, and afraid to take my shirt off at the pool. People making comments towards me, and again, like, I felt like, what's wrong with me? Like, people in grade school, like, said that I looked like I had Down syndrome and called me Down syndrome Doug, which was,
oh, jeez. Yeah.
And then you begin to internalize things, and you start to be like, well, maybe there is something wrong with me. Like, I'm not good at sports. I'm not coordinated, and things aren't happening the way I want them to.
Yeah.
And there would be days where I would cry because I was so, like, upset with my life. And I felt that it wasn't fair. Like, I felt like life dealt me a bad hand, and I didn't know how to play it to get it better. And, because sports can be a great outlet, I think, for people when life deals you a bad hand. There's a lot of people that they grow up in hard environments, right? And because of sports, they're able to escape those things. And there's many success stories like that, right? I wasn't good at sports, so I didn't have that option to, like, use that as a lever to deal with what I was dealing with. And so I chose to self-medicate because I felt that it was the simplest thing I could reach for. And initially, I did whatever I could to fit in because I wanted friends. I wanted people to like me. And I felt that if I started to smoke weed, I would be accepted by the cool kids and I would feel like I fit in. Well, what it did is it got me to be okay with numbing myself with substances. And so, did I get more friends? I mean, sure. I developed a lot of friendships, especially when I started to sell drugs. And, I talk a lot about, like, your ability to be successful in life is dependent upon the people you have around you. And when you're changing your life, when you're trying to beat addiction, you have to change the people you spend time with. I don't think the people I was spending time with were necessarily mostly, like, quote unquote bad people. I think they were people that just weren't making decisions that were in line with where I needed to go in my life. Because I was just tired of suffering. I was tired of just, like, running that rat race. And but it was tough for me to change my friends and change that lifestyle because my home life, I didn't see it as perfect. I found, because of the decisions I made and the way the cards played out, like, I take sole responsibility for the way things did because I acted like a jerk as a kid. And because of that, because of the way I responded to my situations, I didn't have the best relationship with my family, my parents specifically. And when I did that, I would fill those voids with relationships with friends, my friends' parents, and they would become like family to me. And so when I went to go like leave the addiction world, it was hard because I had become addicted to that lifestyle, and I had developed this new family that I felt like I could potentially let down. I'm sleeping on friends' couches when I was kicked out and stuff like that. That it was just not something that was easy to do. And so I have a lot of compassion for people that still are stuck in those places. And that's why I talk a lot about like finding new friends and leaving people like that, because if you don't, I just think it's like a byproduct of your environment. You'll end up being brought down, because of those people.
Man, it's such a good point how much environment plays a role in it, and specifically like the people. Because I was even thinking about like who gave you weed for the first time. It was probably one of your friends at school, something like that.
It was my neighbor. Yeah.
Neighbor. Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting. Like when we have these conversations with our audiences about, how did you first get exposed to pornography? It's often it's friends, it's a family member, maybe it's a babysitter, it's that sketchy uncle that, your parents never really wanted to drop you off there, but they had to.
Right.
And it's crazy how those are the things that can, kind of set you off course, but they're also the things that get you back on track. Like your cellmate, obviously being a pivotal person. Do you still have any contact with him? Does he know how much he changed your life?
So the really cool and unfortunate thing with Eric is when I got out of jail, we exchanged some letters. And, because at first I got out like the day after Christmas. It was cold here in Maryland. And, he wrote me out this workout routine. Part of it was running, going for runs outside.
Okay. And sorry to pause you, but was that after 90 days that you got out?
Yeah.
After your 90 days. Okay.
And so I ended up actually doing, may have been like something like 72, because it was 90 days, but then you get 5 days a month off for good behavior. And then I got a job and they're like wiping down tables or something that helped to get some time off too.
So that fitness transformation you described happened in the course of like the 90 days, give or take?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you had like a proper like 90-day body transformation in jail.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Got it. For some reason, when you said that at first, I was thinking 5 years, but yeah. Okay. That's wild.
Yeah. And then like, him and I exchanged some letters, and like, I remember complaining, being like, it's too cold out to run outside. He's like, go to Target and buy yourself sweatpants. I train machines, not wusses, or something like that. And then when he got out, we ended up meeting up and grabbing a few workouts together in person. And I dedicated my first book to him, From Felony to Fitness to Free. And I remember him telling me at one point, he's like, man, I know I inspired you, but now you inspire me, which really meant a lot. And then we stayed in touch, but then we ended up kind of losing touch. He went on a different path in life, unfortunately. And then he ended up dying a few years ago. Wow. Super sad situation. And the cool thing, I guess you could say, about that was I would always tell the same story with my cellmate helping me, because obviously without that part, I likely would be dead right now, would not be talking to you right now. And so I would tell the story on the podcast, countless podcasts and media and stuff like that. And when he died, his family was like going through like his Facebook, maybe seeing what he was tagged in. I forget how it exactly happened, but like somebody who was like a cousin of his or something reached out to me on Facebook. I was like, hey, you probably don't know who I am, blah, blah, blah. But, I'm Eric's, I think, cousin. And, I know he really like spoke highly of you. I know you guys were in jail together or something like that. He's like, she's like, I've been listening to these podcasts that you talk about, like the good side of him and who we remember. And just thank you for doing that.
Wow.
And I never, I come on shows like this because I'm like, oh, like, I love having conversations with people like yourself and love sharing like wisdom and insights to help like people who are listening. Like I never thought it would be to like carry on someone's legacy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I ended up being invited to go speak at his funeral. And I spoke and told the story to like his friends and family. And it was like pretty surreal, like being able to get up there and like,
wow,
share the story of hope.
Yeah. Jeez, man. But it just puts into perspective, like you just don't know how you're going to change somebody's life, right? Just calling them, like he kind of called you out, and then, we kind of use this expression sometimes, like he called you up, right? He saw something in you that you didn't even see in yourself. And we haven't even got to like all your accolades, dude. Like you're an award-winning personal trainer. You have a really popular YouTube channel and podcast, and you got a book deal. I think you said you're working on your 4th book now. and there's some like just incredible things that I feel like have happened out of this story. So maybe we can transfer over to that. So you get out of jail.
Well, the one thing I want to say really quick is I think sometimes in life we're expecting these like important people to change our lives. It's like we want to have a conversation with Tony Robbins because we feel like he's going to be the guy to change us. And Tony's very inspirational, or Peterson, or all these other people that are, putting out a lot of great content and a lot of great work to help people.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes it's like the unknown people. It's like the unsung heroes that come into your life, people you don't expect. Like I used to volunteer at a homeless shelter in Baltimore, and some of the wisdom I would hear from these people, like insane. Like you just never know who you're going to talk to, man. Just insane wisdom. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. But yeah, I'm happy to talk about like the back half of the journey.
Yeah. There's more to the story. But no, that is a really good point though, right? Is if we're like, we can't be picky, I guess, about the people that God puts in front of us to steer us in the right path or give us wisdom. And that's why I asked that question earlier about why you even listened to Eric in the first place or how he got through. Because I guess I was putting myself in your shoes and I'm just thinking like, man, I've just made a bunch of bad decisions. I'm in jail. I'm overweight. I don't like my body. I don't like myself. And then I got the super jack guy telling me I need to work out. Like that would just piss me off. I'd be like, screw you, man. So I again, like he obviously got through to you, and now that you've explained the story, I understand why. But it's just such a good reminder as well. Like what you said is, yes, you got to pay attention to the people that are around you because God might be talking and there might be something there for you. But also, who's to stop you from being that in somebody else's life? Totally. Right. And you just never know when somebody needs that word of encouragement or someone just saying like, hey, I see this in you, you can do it. So, yeah, it's a really good point.
Yeah. But yeah, man. And I think at the end of the day, like when it's like anything, if you're like over searching for something, like, I just think it's a lot harder to find it because you're so focused on like that it becomes like unnatural. Where I wasn't like, trust me, I wasn't the guy who was in jail like, man, I'm going to change. I can't wait to change. I was like doing everything I could to not.
Yeah.
And then this guy came in my life and the rest is history.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. So actually, one more question maybe before we get into some specifics about just the life that you built. When did fitness become not I'm dealing with my anger and I'm getting it out, but because I would say, like we already discussed this, but obviously that's at some point that road runs out, right? Like it's a good thing to get started, lots of anger, lots of things to probably just get out of your body, get out of your system. So it makes sense why that fueled you. But I definitely got the impression the way you told your story that at some point that shifted where the relationship changed with fitness and to something that's probably maybe a little bit healthier and has a bit more longevity to it. When did that happen?
I think probably my mid to late 20s. So as a kid, I was like, man, if I can be jacked, be successful, and, chase pretty women, like life will always be good. That's what my mindset was. And I think it was because like the inverse of that wasn't always true when I was like a teenager or whatever. And so when I worked really hard to get to a point where I was jacked and, getting a lot of attention from pretty girls and successful, I still wasn't happy. I was like miserable. I was living a life where I was afraid of making any wrong decision, of eating anything that would, jeopardize my 8-pack because I was like,
I see.
If I like gain body fat, are people still going to like me? If I look a certain way, will people still like me?
So it's almost like the inverse. It's the same insecurity. It's just like manifesting kind of like inversely from before.
And I think because I was doing it for the wrong reasons. I wasn't doing it for myself. I was doing it for the validation from other people. I was doing it. Obviously it was a huge self-esteem booster for me, but it was like any other drug. Like I needed to do more. Like I needed to get more ripped or do more stuff in the gym or whatever to get that same feeling that I had gotten before. And I felt like I had been sold this bill of goods and lied to because I was like, man, like I chased this thing, the wrong thing forever for nothing, like obviously it changed my life and very thankful for it. But what I was seeking from it at that time, I just didn't get because I still I saw the old Doug in the mirror. I hadn't come to terms with my life decisions. And I remember, I was just struggling a lot. Like I was afraid to like go out with friends because it would mean I would have to like cheat on my diet. But then like on a Sunday, I'm like driving from like going from Five Guys to Cold Stone to pizza and like binging on cheat meals because I was, depriving myself throughout the week. And then I remember I was like trying to compete in a men's physique competition while running a very successful personal training business, while like also like doing like managing some trainers. Just had so much stuff going on in my life, working on a book, that I just kind of collapsed emotionally. And one of my best friends kind of stepped in and gave me some tough love and pretty much told me that I was doing stuff for the wrong reasons. And then a client of mine was a pastor at a local non-denominational church, which this also really helped me because like to this day, I still don't consider myself to be like religious. Like I believe in God, I believe in Jesus, but I'm not a fan of religion, so to speak, like organized religion. And he had encouraged me to start like going to church with him. And I was just like, dude, like I hate God. At this point, I hated God. Like I was like, I grew up in the mindset, traditional religion, where if you're good, you go to heaven. If you're bad, you go to hell. I thought I was on the highway to hell, and I thought I was already like 90% there. So it didn't really matter what I did. And I also, again, like was still kind of caught up in this, pseudo victim mindset of, well, if God is about love and God is so good, like why was my life so chaotic? And then like one day, man, like I was at a mastermind retreat, I think was I in Disney World? I was in Florida somewhere. And I remember just kind of breaking down. And, I had thought I had everything I ever wanted. I was a good looking dude, in shape, had just written a book from a guy who didn't graduate high school, or barely graduated high school, I should say. Was quite an accomplishment. I was one of the most, if not the most successful trainer, like at the company I was working at, voted as a fitness hero and in Baltimore by the Baltimore Sun, had done like media and stuff. And again, I thought this is what I wanted. And then you realize like the thing that I wanted was to be content and happy with myself. And it was because I was so focused on the accolades and the attention from other people, I never gave myself the ability to like actually figure out like what I wanted and to heal, some of the stuff that I needed to like heal from with my past, instead of like just stuffing it down and using like dumbbells to like, fix it. And so I ended up like calling this guy that I trained, this pastor, when I got back from this trip. His name's Ben. And I said, Ben, man, I think I'm ready to give this Jesus thing a try. And I don't know what it was about him, but he was always like the most joyful person in the gym. And I was like, man, what's wrong with this guy? It was just a weird feeling, right?
Yeah.
And we actually just had coffee together a few days ago, but he had reacted like I just told him he won the Mega Millions. And I came in, acknowledged that Jesus had died for my sins, and I started to cry, and I felt that same weight come off my back that did with drugs. I remember calling my mom and like apologizing to her for the first time, and then beginning to like unravel a lot of stuff, through therapy, just through my own personal development journey of understanding that, God, I wasn't proud of the decisions that I made, but God was. And I really was drawn to the resurrection story of Jesus, because I was like, man, like that's really kind of cool of what happened to him. And I was like, man, like that could be, I mean, I never saw myself as being Jesus, but like, wow, like you could turn something super negative and come back to life, right, in a positive way. And, I learned how he lived his life of being of service and hanging out with people that were less than him and wanting to do good in the world and being about love. And I was like, man, like this is like kind of how I wanted to live a similar life of being of service and helping people and giving back and stuff. Which is why, initially I started the podcast, by the way, was to like help people overcome adversity. I never thought it would turn into the business that it has. And then, I got in tune with like better people in my life and developed some really solid friendships in the fitness space too, that, friends of mine still to this day that I've had, where before when I was doing drugs, it was like very surface level, like, you're kind of using each other, and in some ways. And I also learned a lot about forgiveness. I had a lot of forgiving to do in my life. I had a lot of forgiveness when it came to people in my life, myself, that transformation really helped me. And it allowed me to develop a better relationship with fitness and being like, okay, like whatever I've been doing isn't working. Like,
Yeah.
nobody likes me, any better now because of what I look like. They like me better because I'm not as much of a jerk and I'm not like, destroying myself in other people's lives along the way.
Yeah.
And so fitness now is like part of my life. It's not my entire thing. I try to eat good 80% of the time, and the other 20%, I like to, eat normal food and stuff. And I still, I like, now it's more like I go to the gym for my mental health and well-being, and not because I want to like flex in the mirror. Like, it's more about like, if I go to the gym, I know I'm proving to myself that I'm showing up and that I love myself. It's not because I'm sitting there and being like, yeah, like I need to like punish myself today.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is saying something because of your story, where you came from. But also it sounds like finding faith in some of those things really changed your heart, like changed your mindset.
Yeah, and it gave me greater purpose in life, man, because there's a Bible verse that's always stuck with me, and it's Genesis 50:20. I don't know exactly how it goes. Actually, I have my Bible right next to me that I got from jail that they gave to me. Because it's funny, when I was in jail, I would like go to Bible study to get out of the cell. Like, I really didn't care,
No way, that's hilarious.
But Genesis 50:20, it's something like God intended you to go through this so you could help yourself and other people, or something like that. And that verse like really has stuck with me. It's like, let me just pull it up just so you have the exact Genesis. It says, you intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is being done, the saving of many lives. So, I think about that, and that like helped me a lot to kind of come to terms with things like, oh, like it's just doing a lot of good. Like I'm now using my story. Like, you can't make up the fact that this guy randomly picks me in jail to like help save my life. And now I'm doing it for other people. And then I started to get inspired and be like, hey, like I want to help other people in recovery. So, I've trained countless people who have struggled with addiction, countless. And I love it. It's really great to help give back in that way, and to have that as a part of my business where I'm having an impact on people in that way. And then it's, it kind of inspired me to like be like, think bigger picture and being like, all right, do I just want to be a trainer, or do I want to be like, somebody that has a greater impact on people? Like, I never, set out to be a content creator or an influencer or a podcaster. It was more like a continuing evolution of who I was as a person, and developing the skills along the way to get to that place. You know what I mean? Like, I think like things just happen naturally. Like, I started to train people, then I got good at that. And then I started to share my story with my clients, because they would ask me like how I got into fitness. And eventually I had to stop like being like, oh, it's not that important, with that excuse. And then like, they were like, holy crap, you have a story, share it.
Yes.
Then I would. And then I saw positive feedback from that. And then that like, just snowballed into other speaking opportunities, and then the writing, and then getting on podcasts. And it's all like an evolution of time. I mean, I'm working with an agent now on a book, and that's all been like just a series of small wins compounding over time.
Yeah.
I think the biggest mistake, and it's hard too, like when people are in recovery and they're trying to beat addiction, one of the, I mean, I don't even know if it's a limiting belief, but it's like a self-sabotaging behavior is, when am I going to get there?
Yeah.
Or, you know what I mean? And it's like, well, not for a while, like it's going to take some time. Yeah. And if people can just understand that, for people to get to 20 years without drugs, without porn, whatever it is, they had to start with like a month. Before that, they had to start with a day, 2 days, a week, and then a month turns into 3 months. But the minute you're like, man, like I'm not going to use porn for like 20 years. I'm not going to smoke weed for 20 years or whatever. You're like, you're done, because then it's like you put so much pressure on yourself. There's so much unknown that exists in the 20 years. And not to say that you won't do it, but it's like, if that's where you're at, you just lose sight of the present, of like being like, okay, like control the controllables, control today, build off of that, and then like just see where the rest of the magic comes from.
It's so true. Yeah, it's one of the hardest things, because it's right to have the goal to be fully free, and to never want to have that in your life again.
Totally.
But the only way that you actually get there is literally just going one step at a time.
Right.
Because otherwise you put the cart before the horse, you put too much pressure, or, in the addiction recovery or porn addiction recovery space, a lot of people are prone to street counting, which is something we really discourage, because street counting, it's a little bit different with drugs, because with drugs, like, you need to quit and you need to not go back. There's a lot of biology there. But with pornography, like, when people have the street counting mentality, if they have a little slip, it's like, oh, I have to reset. I start all over again. And we kind of get into these traps mentally, when really, if you only had one slip in 31 days, you can actually learn from it, get back on your feet, keep moving forward one step at a time. So I think the time scale is huge, and I think a lot of people miss that in the recovery conversation.
Yeah, and I think part of the beauty of recovery is embracing the journey and just the self-reflection and transformation that can exist.
Yes.
During those times, and just remembering those times. Like, I remember, like, the biggest amount of confidence in my life hasn't been built from anything I've done in my professional career. It's been my ability to transform my life when I was behind bars. It was the ability for me to keep going even when it didn't make sense. It was the ability to show up for myself even when my biology was telling me not to.
Yeah.
And then, of course, along the way, yes, like, certain achievements in my career professionally have helped boost my self-esteem. But that came as a result of me doing the foundational work of, okay, like, when you want to achieve something meaningful, it's going to be tough. It's going to take time. You're going to have to be consistent. You have to show up. You're going to not make excuses. And that all came from that time when I was in jail. And, I go back to that a lot, because I think people believe that confidence will just magically appear when they get to the top. And I think that confidence comes when you continue to believe in yourself and get up, even when things don't make sense, even when you're falling down. And then you just keep moving forward because you believe in yourself that you'll figure things out. Like, that's where I think real confidence comes from.
Yep, it's true. It really is in the journey. So, Doug, what would you say to somebody who's maybe watching this? They're hearing your story, they're hearing about all you've been through, and they maybe just need to figure out, like, what's my next step? Like, okay, I'm hearing you. I understand, like, don't put too much pressure and have this super lofty goal and get obsessed with it. Just go one step at a time. How do you figure out what that next step is in your journey?
I mean, it's a tough question. I think the right answer that comes to my mind is you have to really assess where you're at on this journey. Like, because, my answer to somebody who is just getting started is different from somebody who's like a few weeks in. Like, my answer to somebody who's just getting started is reach out and ask for help. Like, admit that you don't have something figured out right now. And people will be like, well, I don't have anyone to talk to. It's like, you can find someone. You can, in this day and age, you can literally, obviously the hopeful answer is find somebody in your life, whether it's a coworker, a neighbor, a friend, somebody you know at the gym, whatever, that you trust, and just call and just say, like, I need help. Here's what's going on. And I think we fear, like, nobody is going to beat you down when you're already down. I think, 99% of the time people are going to be like, oh my God, like, how can I help you?
Yeah.
Like, what can I do to help you? So that's my message for someone who's at step one. And then, like, if you don't have someone, people can say what they want about social media, and I obviously think there's some negativity to it, but it can be a great tool for admitting that you need some help. Go into some sort of support group, make a post, be honest, be vulnerable. You never know what can come from it.
100%.
But then, like, somebody who's already, like, kind of on the journey, I would be really dialed into what your habits are and how you're allocating your time, and slowly improving those things. Like, to me, it comes down to who are you spending time with? Like write down, like, top 5 people you're spending the most time with. How do you spend time with them? How do you feel after you spend time with them? Do they bring you joy? Do they light you up? Can you have tough conversations with them? Are they in line with where you want to go? Go from there. What's your health look like? You don't have to be a bodybuilder. You don't have to be a marathon runner, but get to the gym, like join a yoga studio, like do something that you can throw yourself in the mix with people that are looking to better yourself. And what's one of the things people struggle with when they're in recovery, looking at the past. When you're working out, it keeps you focused on the future. It keeps you like focused on developing into that better version of yourself. It gets you used to celebrating these small wins like I've talked about.
So true.
Take care of your body. You know, I would get spiritually fit in a way that works for you. Like mine is very unorthodox. Like I don't go to church. But I still have this relationship, I think, with God, you know, and I've never been a super religious person, and, you know, but you have to find something that works for you that kind of gets you thinking bigger than just yourself. I think gratitude is incredibly important, specifically for people that don't think they have things figured out. Because, you know, when things aren't going your way and you're starting to create some momentum, it's easy to be like, hey, I don't have these things in my life yet. But when you can like clench and be like, hey, like I'm really grateful that, you know, I've been to the gym 3 days this week, or I've had coffee with so-and-so, whatever the example is, you start to get that positive, frame of mind, like going. And then like the other thing I would say is like really get good at regulating your emotions and figuring out things that work for you to practice the pause a little bit better and to not fall prey to the instant gratification of acting out or doing something. And it's a muscle. It takes time, takes work. But that could be breath work, could be therapy, it could be whatever. Like find something that works for you. And I think if you can do those few things and you can just celebrate those small wins and do what you need to do on a day-to-day basis and not get sidetracked with outside of that, I mean, I think you have a really good chance at transforming your life.
Man, very well said. Yeah, it was worth it to get that nugget of gold out of you at the end, man. That's really good. Really good stuff. The podcast is called Adversity Advantage. Is that right?
The Adversity Advantage, yeah.
The Adversity Advantage. I'd highly recommend you guys go check that out. You've had some incredible conversations, a lot of just high value content on there. And then obviously stay tuned for book number 4 it is, right? You said you self-published 3 and then you got 1 through an agent now on the way?
Self-published 3, working with an agent on a proposal for 1 now. Yeah, we haven't signed an official book deal yet, but that's hopefully going to come sometime in the near future.
Oh, sweet, man. Well, we'll get you back on when the book's out so you can share it with our audience. We'd love to have you back.
Sounds good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, great having you.